Okay. Hi, welcome everybody to the IDRPP Autism Echo. We're glad that you're joining us. If you will put your name and contact information into the chat, we are going to go ahead and get started. We are recording today's session, so we store this on our Canvas page as well as our YouTube channel for you to go back and review those sessions. By participating in the session, you're consenting to being recorded. So thank you for doing that. And if you don't want to be recorded, to go ahead and hit that leave button. We have some components of an echo session if you've never joined it, that we do some professional networking. We always have a subject matter expert speaker. Today we have Cassidy from the ASSERT program who is going to be talking to us about surviving the big three holidays, some great ideas. And then we have a case presentation where we then go into breakout groups and do small discussions to provide those recommendations. All of those recommendations are also stored on our Canvas page, so sometimes we don't get a chance to come back and discuss all of those. So if you have, you want to look at those and utilize those with the cases that you work with or the families that you work with, please feel free to download those. We have always de-identified the information so there's not personalized information on there. We love that interactive community. So if you have any questions or comments and want to put those into chat, one of our hub members, Colin Kingsbury, is who will monitor that and make sure that your questions get answered or discussed. Again, case narratives are always a great way to, one, learn from all these amazing people on the call. I love when I get to do a case because I get to take that back to the families I work with, as well as just learn from all of you guys on the call. So if you're interested in doing a case, please reach out to us and we'll get you set up on that schedule. Sometimes presenting a case that cannot be the funnest experience that you want to do because, talking in front of people or sharing that case. And if you would like me to present that, I'll be happy to do that. That's what I'm doing today is I'm presenting for somebody else on that. We do talk about sensitive topics. We talk about some of the clients and families that we work with. So please remember to protect their individual privacy. If you have any questions about that, you can reach out to one of our hub members. They all have a background behind their name or an asterisk in front of their name. We have all been on Zoom for a minute or two, or now 5 years. It seems like COVID just barely happened, but we're still talking about it, right? Anyways, so we probably all know how to rename and raise your hand on Zoom, and it has been updated. So this slide is probably a little bit outdated since Zoom has now updated their Zoom workplace a little bit, and even with the chats have been updated. But if you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Leo. He will be able to help you get set up on that. In order to get our credit for attendance, we do ask that you complete the survey. The survey is who we send our results back to. We send that information back to our funding agency. And a huge shout out to DHHS with Children with Special Health Care Needs for providing funding for this project. The information on the survey is what we report to them and to show them what we're doing on that. And then again, Tori will be dropping the survey throughout today's session into chat and also with a follow-up call. Canvas, not a follow-up call, a follow-up email. Tori, I just saw Tori's eyes bug when I said call. Follow-up email will also have the survey link in it. Again, Canvas is where we store everything. If you would like access to our Canvas page, please just email autismecho@aggies.usu.edu and we will get you set up for that. It is where we store all of our handouts, case discussions, case recommendations, the video. So again, it's a great way to just get more information. Case study is always a plug for that. So if you have a case that you're struggling with, or you just want to make sure that you're celebrating your successes, please consider doing a case study. Again, reach out to autismecho@aggies.usu.edu and we will get you set up on that schedule. We do have social media where we share resources, upcoming sessions about all the echoes that we do here at the Institute. So if you've not taken a minute, follow us on social media. And then I'm going to stop sharing and turn the time over to Cassidy, who will take it away. Cassidy, where are you on my screen? There you are. Cool. So now I can highlight for everybody.
All right, let me get my screen shared. Okay, can you guys see the slides?
Yep.
Okay, great, perfect. I'm gonna minimize the Zoom so I can just barely see you guys. So if you need something, Colin, just interrupt. All right, so today I got invited to chat with you guys about preparing for the holidays. Like Janelle said, I work at the ASSERT Autism program up here at Utah State. And this is one of my favorite presentations to give in all of the trainings that I get to do for families, for clinicians. I think it's just really applicable going into this time of year, and there's a lot of stress about all these different fun activities that we all get to do. So, what we want to do is talk about how we can not just survive the holidays, but how we can thrive and have a really good time across the board. Really, it comes down to setting and adjusting our expectations, creating a plan, and then we'll go through some holiday specific ideas. So, we'll just kind of go through this little framework. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and call and help me out. So I don't know about you guys, but when I think of holidays, I think of this. I think of like Norman Rockwell. I think of very picturesque, very, stereotypical holidays. Everything's perfect. But really, when it comes down to it, this is oftentimes what it looks like when we are enjoying the holidays with our families. I have two neurotypical kids, and I can tell you for sure that is what cookie making often looks like with my children. And going to see Santa or going trick-or-treating, a lot of times it ends up being not as fun or a little bit different than what I was expecting. So, some things that we could really think about when we're starting to plan is really getting set up from the beginning and making sure we know what we're going to focus on and what we're going to relax on during these times. So, what happens when problems arise? How are we going to address them? What behaviors can we relax on? Like maybe we're potty training and that's our thing that we're not going to relax on, but maybe it's, and you know what? Food is not the priority right now. We're going to bring those chicken nuggets with us and it's going to be, we're just going to make sure that potty training is still going. Um, and then, like I said, look at the things that you want to follow through on and make sure that are still happening. And then, how can you prepare your child in advance and make sure that all of you are prepped ahead of time? So some ways that we talk about it is looking at what is your goal of this event? What is really how we're going to address this situation? Are we going to survive this event? Or are we going to fully participate? I know as a parent, there's sometimes that it's just, I just have to show up for this thing and I'm just going to survive it. It's not necessarily that we're going to enjoy every minute of it, but it's we're gonna make it through. And then there's other times it's like, nope, we're gonna go do all the things and we're gonna enjoy this part and that part and all the others. So identify with your partner, your spouse, a grandparent, whoever is involved in this event. set those goals ahead of time. And then decide what the expectations are. Are we going to just have our kiddo stay close and quiet? Are we working on greeting family members and playing with cousins? What is our expectation for this event? What are we hoping to get out of it? And how are we going to set that kiddo up for success? And then, hey, do you know what? We might need some extra reinforcement or rewards along the way. What are some things that we could give? Who will give them? How often are we going to give them? So I don't know about you guys, but oftentimes the families that I work with, they'll talk about how they have a bossy older cousin, oftentimes a girl who may be like 10, 11, 12, and they're just in this very nurturing age and they want to participate and help. Sometimes those might be the cousins that you're like, hey, do you know what? If so and so is hanging out in this area, and he's just like still coloring and doing his stuff, will you just give him some treats every once in a while? Sometimes putting someone else in charge is great. Sometimes it might be easiest to say, do you know what? Nope, this is my event. I'm going to be the one that is helping out with my kiddo, or my spouse is going to be helping out. Just setting those expectations of who and what we're giving, to make sure that we're prepped and ready to go. And then deciding who is in charge. Years ago, I got really great advice in one of the parent meetings that we had at ASSERT. And they said that when they go to the opposite family's event, so like if I'm going to my husband's family party around the holidays, I will be the one that's in charge of my kids. I'm the one that's on call. That makes it so my husband can enjoy the time with his family. He doesn't have to get pulled away by whatever. And that way I also get to escape. So, like when my kiddos were still napping and little, I would get to have a little break and I'd get to go hide with my kiddos, and maybe I get to read while so and so takes a nap. That can be a really nice thing because then they don't feel like they're missing out, and you can have that time to like get out of busyness and get your kiddo some of that time to like recharge and relax. And then always having like escape plan in mind, setting a plan of like when we're going to leave and how we're going to leave. Maybe that's we bring two cars to an event because this is dad's event and he's going to want to hang out with his brother longer. And it might be, hey, do you know what? That's going to be how we're going to go through this event. And if we need to leave, I will take the kiddos and we'll head out and go get ready for bed, and that's fine too. It also might be smaller things, which we have some ideas of that in this next slide. So one family also talked about how they oftentimes will have one area that's just basically an escape area for that kiddo. And they'll just have like they've talked about some families have like little pop-up tents, or they like if the event is at like a church, they'll have like a specific room that the kiddo can go to be away from everybody. Or at grandma's house, it might be a separate room and just have one place that they can go and have that quiet space to escape. Because I don't know about you guys, but man, parties get really loud and obnoxious. And we know a lot of our individuals on the spectrum really do not like those loud, wild situations. Some of them do. But having that nice place that they can be interacting with people for a little bit, and then they can hop back to that room and have a break away from everybody. Um, Also thinking about like toys and activities, thinking of how you can set it up for success too. Like, oh, maybe, do you know what? They just learned to play like Don't Break the Ice, or they just learned how to play Connect Four. Bring those games so that they could maybe play with cousins and learn how to like hang out with them and do those things at the party. Instead of, I don't know, maybe Uncle always brings Risk, which is not an age appropriate or skill level appropriate game and often ends in tears for everyone. So thinking about what are things that we can bring that will be entertaining and fun for our kiddo on the spectrum and anybody else that wants to participate. Um, and then thinking about, again, those rewards, like maybe it's some little candies or some stickers, maybe it's stamps, who, like whatever your kiddo finds interesting, having those things available so that we can add some of those rewards. This is a big stretch for some kids, and this is going to be loud and a lot of people and a lot of difference, a lot of change in routine. And that's a big part of the holidays, right? Like our routines often go out the window. Our like structure of maybe they have school or they have therapy or different things, those routines for a couple weeks are all off. So trying to set up some of that, and we'll talk away so that we can do that too. And then this is a really important one too, is trying to remember to catch them being good. I know as a parent, I'm a behavior analyst, and this is my whole world is behavior, right? When my little boy was about 3 years old, I remember I would be working at home and all of a sudden he'd throw something at me. And I'm like, hey, that's not nice. Don't throw. And then he would do it again. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm like, the only time I'm giving him attention is when he's misbehaving and he just wants mom to interact with him. So I literally had to set a timer for myself to remind myself, oh, hey, can you show me what you're doing? Or what are you building with your blocks? Or what car are you racing on the track? Those kind of things. Finding that time to give them some of that little bit of interaction, and just catch them being good because sometimes it's easy to pay attention when things are not going well and not pay attention when things aren't or when they are not going well. So, um, some more ideas for events. Bring some things for outings that might be quiet, maybe bringing headphones and iPad, or some people still pack around like some DVD players, which is pretty cool. Um, Bringing coloring, different activities that might be helpful or relaxing for the kiddo. Um, this can also be helpful at like restaurants. I talk to my family sometimes, like we have those perceptions of, well, people are going to judge us if we have our kid on a tablet, or they're going to judge us if this kid is coloring the whole time when everybody else is eating. Sometimes that's not the goal, is to have them being participating in that activity. It might be that they're just tolerating being there, and that's okay too. And sometimes we have to like go back to those original images, right? And say, this might be what we're hoping for, but I need to adjust my expectations. And right now, this dinner is hard, and these are the things that we're going to do. We're going to bring things that are fun for them because this huge Thanksgiving dinner that we have with our family is just a lot and it takes a lot of time. So giving them something that they enjoy doing, sometimes that can be really helpful too. Arriving early to social gatherings. Lots of families have talked about how they go early because it's less stimulating to walk into the situation, rather than coming in when everybody's there and it's loud and crowded and all those kind of things. And then they often talk about leaving early too. Like, do you know what? I'd much rather leave when my kiddo's having a good time and when things are not tricky for all of us. Maybe I start noticing some signs of discomfort. And I'm like, oh, do you know what? It's time to go. We're gonna go home and go to bed. We've had a good time. We're gonna end on a positive note. So it's easier for everybody, including mom and dad and siblings and everybody. So that's another time that the families bring multiple cars, is like, hey, do you know what? Maybe we have some older siblings that want to stay longer and hang out with family or stay at this party longer. So one parent will stay and bring the younger sibling back. Keep an eye out for breakables. I don't know about you guys, but this is the time of year where everybody decides to put out like glass pumpkins and nativity scenes and all these things that are very breakable and often at kid height. Um, and then I already kind of skipped ahead on this one, is like setting a time to leave, looking at those low level signals that, hey, do you know what? Let's go before this gets harder for him or her. Um, and then, yeah, taking turns watching for those signs and just kind of saying, oh, you know what? It's time for me and so to leave. All right, so we're going to go over some general ideas for different holidays and traveling, just to give you guys some things to think about and things to like, oh, hey, I can't take credit for all of this because a lot of the families that I've worked with over the years have added these things and talked about how they've been really helpful. Okay, so one family often talked about how they have like a pack of favorite items in the car, like sticker books or pom-poms or like these little watercolor books. These are awesome if you haven't used them. You just fill the little paintbrush with water and you paint, and then it dries and you can do it as many times as you want, which is pretty awesome. So you can add those favorite things into like a little busy bag. Um, there's also some things that have been helpful for families too, is like watching point of view, uh, like videos of people walking through airports, going and like having some little like travel tracking. So this one is they have like a little car, you can see it up here. And they would move. So they were going on a road trip. They would move the little car as they got closer. So they'd be like, all right, here's home. This is the next town. This is the next one. And then they would be able to kind of visually track, because it's really hard when there's not like a clear beginning and end of when this road trip is going to happen, right? Like even for my 10-year-old, it's tricky when we're driving. He'll be like, how much further? And I'm like, well, we're on a 6-hour drive and we just left home. So yeah, a while longer. So having some of that visual supports in travel can be really helpful too. This is a cute idea too. Those like just like little jelly sticky things that you use on windows. Families have taken those on flights and used those, and the kid just plays with them on the window or even on the tray. Um, Airlines, one family talked about how they use early boarding. And I was like, oh, that sounds like really stressful for me. Like, I don't want to go on the plane any earlier than I have to. And they were talking about how they have one parent go in, they get all set up. The other parent with the child stays out, walks around until that like last call or whatever. And then they go and get on the flight. So everything's set up, favorite items are out, favorite snacks and preferred all these fun things. So like they're ready and set up as soon as they walk on the plane. There's none of that like chaos of like trying to get the stuff up above. And they said that that was super helpful for them when they were traveling. Another thing is looking at prepping to see relatives. And this is oftentimes where some of those like higher emotions come in for us as parents and for a lot of the grandparents and cousins and things like that. Um, but these are great ideas that we've seen over the years. One thing that we've heard a ton is the more you communicate about your child's needs, your family can be more prepared for what's going to be going on. So like talking about food selectivity, like, hey, so and so is going to be eating chicken nuggets at Thanksgiving dinner. It's not your cooking, Aunt Jean. It's just this is what he's eating, and for him to have a good time at Thanksgiving, we're going to have his favorite food there. Um, and maybe there's things that we want to talk about with family members, like, hey, do you know what? It might be difficult when we're in a large group, or hey, my kiddo is still working on learning how to say hi to people. So if he doesn't say hi, don't be offended. There was one mom that would actually write like a little, like, hey, here's some updates of like things that he's been working on this year. And like he's now waving when he says hi to people and he communicates with a tablet. And like if you're interested, we can show you what that looks like. And she made like a little newsletter that she sent out to family. And then they would come up to the kiddo and they would be like, they would like say hi to him and interact with him with his tablet and everything. And it was, she's like, it was really nice because everybody understood before we got there, and they're like, wait, how does your kid communicate and how does this look? So kind of getting everybody on board and understanding what supports can be helpful. Most family members really want to help, and sometimes they're going to say things that aren't helpful, and being able to walk past those things is sometimes tricky too. Um, Maybe giving them a list of like their favorite topics right now. So maybe so and so is like super into dinosaurs, and maybe you send grandma and grandpa a list of dinosaurs that this kid is really into so that they can talk about some of those with them. So grandpa knows what a pterodactyl is. um, and then something else that we can work on before we see family members is like video chatting with them or reviewing pictures from previous holidays, maybe even like making a little book like this guy down here and just having like, oh, these are the people in our family. Here's a picture. We go through and we practice so we know people's names before those holidays come up. Food is definitely a really tricky one, and it can be high emotions too. So I'm just going to move you guys up here so you guys can see that bottom part. Um, some families talk about how they will feed their child before they get to the party so they're not hungry. Definitely bringing preferred edibles like we've talked about before. Um, Maybe scheduling in some break times throughout dinner, giving some of that like escape before it gets hard. Having them help set up if they are interested in that kind of stuff. Um, we always try to encourage the families that we work with, like, this isn't the time to try new foods. Like, this might be really tricky to try new foods for your kiddo, and trying mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving dinner might not be the easiest for anybody. Um, it might be time to like pull out those big reinforcers and do that. I really thought this meme was pretty funny. Like you could take your kids out to a restaurant or cut out the middle man and just spill a drink, throw crayons on under the table, and light $40 on fire, which sometimes dinner time out at restaurants is like that. Restaurants, we also have some great ideas from previous families about this. They talk about how they bring preferred activities and snacks so they're not waiting. One of the parents that actually was a case manager at ASSERT, she talked about how she would always order her child's food when she first got into the restaurant. So as soon as she sat down when people were ordering appetizers, she would order her child's meal right away. So she's like, all right, here's what they want. And then they didn't have to wait for food, and they'd have their food right away. Um, maybe going places that are familiar, that your order. And then if it's somewhere unfamiliar, try and look up the menu online or have a parent get dropped off at the entrance, or maybe grandma and grandpa are there with you, and one parent can run in and look at the menu and figure out what would be helpful for the child or what would be interesting for them. Um, so now we're going to get into some holiday specific ideas. So we're going to talk about all these ones more in depth. Does anybody have any questions yet, Colin?
No, they do.
Okay, cool. Great. Just wanted to check in. All right, so Halloween is coming up, and that's often a really fun and exciting time, and also has a lot of things to think about when we're working with individuals on the spectrum and or when we're parenting kiddos on the spectrum. So maybe their favorite character is Buzz Lightyear and they really want to be Buzz Lightyear for Halloween, but there's a lot of sensory issues with new clothes. Sometimes that's going to take some time to practice wearing those new things, and waiting until the night of Halloween is probably not going to be our best bet. So giving some practice. Maybe we're going to wear them just for a few minutes here and there. Maybe there's like a big wedding coming up and we need to practice wearing the little suit that Aunt so-and-so wants you to wear at the wedding. So practicing wearing them for a few minutes and then provide that reinforcement and then gradually increasing the time in the outfit and increasing how long they're wearing it for. A lot of times it can be helpful to um, do this when they're calm. Like, don't try and do these practices when they're already frustrated about other things. So maybe they've had a really long day at school and they come home and you can just tell they're agitated. It's not the time to practice wearing Halloween costume. But hey, do you know what? Saturday morning they have been fed, they're happy, they're relaxed. Great. We're gonna try on our costume and maybe we're gonna turn on that movie and hang out for a little bit and really enjoy spending some time in the costume. Also showing them pictures of themselves and their costume can be helpful too. And then shooting for a reasonable amount of time to wear those things. Like maybe it's for a grandparent bought them something special that they wanted them to wear for pictures or things like that. Try and plan ahead and say, okay, we're gonna put this on right before that person arrives, or right before, like right when we get to this event, we're gonna put it on, and then we're gonna take it off as soon as we can too. Trick or treating, there's a lot of prerequisite skills when we think about all these like social interactions and all these different things. So some things that we work on at ASSERT when we're teaching kiddos to trick or treat, which it's already time. It is the end of September nearly, so we are going to get started on practicing trick or treating probably next week. So we'll first teach them knocking. So we often will just like close our office door. We'll teach them to knock and wait, and then when we open the door, they'll say trick or treat and we give them a treat, and I'll show you how that kind of works out. So there's other things like waiting that we need to work on, choice making, taking one item. Sometimes it's going to be non-preferred items that are given, and sometimes we just say thank you and take it, right? Like we just put it in our bag and we walk away. So there's a lot of like high-level social skills that we could be working on, or some like really early social skills or choice making. Sometimes our kiddos, we notice that like if we give two options, they're really good at picking one, but if we put the whole bowl in front of them, that can be really tricky. So we teach them that skill too of like, oh, I'm gonna scan, I'm gonna grab the one that I want and put it in my bag. And we work on the communication part with trick or treat and thank you, which this is one of our favorite ways to practice trick or treating. So I was just talking about one of our families, or chatting with one of our families that's been in the program for a year already. And they were so excited for Halloween this year. And they're like, we dreaded Halloween every year up until last year. And they're like, it was so fun for him to be able to go out with his siblings. And we had this system. So I'll kind of show you. I don't know if I'm sharing my audio, so we'll see if it plays.
Not get any audio.
Say that again.
We did not get any audio.
Okay, let me see if I can fix that really fast. Sure. Okay. So I'm going to explain this to you before I show it again. So this is something called a mini me button. They're just the buttons that are in Build-A-Bear toys and those kind of things. What you do is you just twist the top and there's a little button and you can record and you twist it back and then that white button, when you push it, it plays that audio. So for kiddos who might not be using a tablet yet, but are maybe using more picture exchange, that kind of stuff, we'll use it for kiddos at that skill level. And then we'll put this big picture of trick or treat on it for the PEX picture. And then we just teach them to touch the picture and it says trick or treat. So I'll play this again. Hopefully it works.
Trick or treat. Trick or treat. Trick or treat.
So my kiddo last year was able to take this around trick or treating. And by the end of the night, he wasn't using it anymore. And he was just barely starting to like vocally communicate and speak. And by the end of the night, he was starting to try and say trick or treat, which was so exciting to his family to see like that connection between I push the button, I hear the thing, I get the thing back from them. And then I was trying to like initiate that by myself. So this is a really easy way. You can get them off Amazon for pretty cheap. There's so many buttons that you can buy now. You can get big ones, you can get small ones, much more accessible than they were 10 years ago, which is super exciting. So yeah, it's nice to have different ways for our kiddos who are using tablets to communicate. We'll program a button in and they'll navigate in their into their folders and use that trick or treat button. And then a lot of times we'll also teach them to say thank you as well. Another thing that can be fun and exciting and tricky around the holidays is taking pictures. So here's some ideas that I've seen and used. Our easiest thing that we use at ASSERT is we usually put a preferred YouTube video above the person that is taking the picture, and then the person who's taking the picture is right here and snapping photos, because a lot of times we'll end up getting that really great looking towards the camera and some big smiles. I thought this little Elmo one was pretty cute too. This is gifts are a really exciting and fun part of holidays. And I don't know if any of you who are parents out there have ever had the experience of buying something and being really excited about it, and then your child was not as excited as you were about it. So this is another time that we have to kind of adjust our expectations. And we have so many great things that parents have shared with us in this part. We can practice those things too. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that video. There's a video of a little boy and he opens a present and it's an avocado and he's like, it's an avocado, and he gets so excited. So we actually practice this with both of our children at home too before holidays, before going to grandma's and grandpa's, is to like have that appropriate reaction of like, oh, thank you. I'm like, even if you don't like something, that's how you should respond when someone gives you a gift. And then you can totally tell mom and dad later that you didn't like that thing. That's fine. But turning and saying, I already have that Hot Wheels to someone isn't the nicest thing to do. So we practice reacting appropriately when we open gifts, definitely communicating with people that they are around, like teachers, case managers, interventionists, therapists, whoever is working with the child. Have them give you some ideas. That's always really helpful for us. Is a lot of families will reach out and be like, hey, what are they really into? And I'm like, actually right now, bubbles are their thing. That's been like the most exciting part. So what if your child likes to unwrap presents more than they like to play with them? Some families have talked about how they just wrap a ton of boxes that are empty or put like small things in each box because the kid has so much fun just unwrapping things, but they really don't care what's in the box. So definitely identifying what's exciting about presents for the child and keeping it fun for them is really cool. Some kiddos have really hard time keeping presents wrapped. Like once they figure out, oh, unwrapping presents is awesome and there's really cool things in them. There's been families that are like, yeah, our whole family's presents under the whole tree all got unwrapped and mom had to rewrap them. So sometimes it's working on practicing waiting. We've worked on that at ASSERT with kiddos. We'll like put presents in the cubby and we'll just practice like tolerating having them there without unwrapping them. Some families talk about how like there's different traditions, right? There might be some families that like you take turns, each person unwraps a present, or it just might be a free-for-all and everybody just unwraps everything all at once. So kind of figuring out what works for your family, and then maybe it's we're gonna adjust and hey, this child really loves unwrapping presents, but as soon as they unwrap one, they're gonna play with it for a really long time. Maybe we're gonna set a timer for each thing that they unwrap and be like, okay, let's open the next one and move on. Or maybe it's we're just gonna let it go and we're gonna let them unwrap that present. And if it takes us every day till New Year's to get everything unwrapped, that's fine too. Like it can be adjusted to whatever works for you and your child. Um, some families will wrap all their child's presents in one color so they can identify exactly whose is whose. So you can be like, all right, so and so, your presents are green. Some families also won't like leave any tags or names on them. And it's just the color. And at the bottom of their stocking is where they find out what color their presents are. So like there's no shaking the presents before, and there's no guessing or like, oh, I'm going to unwrap this one because it's mine. I was like, that's pretty creative, pretty interesting way to do it too. Sometimes gift wrapping can be really fun for us as parents, and sometimes it can be really frustrating for our children as well. So thinking about how is going to be easiest for them to get into that present and how are they going to enjoy it the most. Adjusting and having, instead of like this really pretty box that's wrapped up all nice with lots of ribbons that are impossible to get off, maybe we put things in bags so it's really easy to access the items and get them out. We've also done things where like families will unwrap the toys because most of the time our kiddos don't really care that they're new. They care that they're accessible, and sometimes getting them out, getting the batteries in and get them ready to go is going to be a lot better experience for the child than it would be to wait and get frustrated trying to get them out. Also making sure that you have like scissors or things available. If you're not doing that, making sure that you have tools to take things apart because now there's like actual screws in the bottom of toys and you can't get them out of the package. So making sure you have what you need for that morning as well. Decorations too. Maybe we're adapting how we're decorating. Maybe we're adding some more kid-friendly things that they can interact with. One family had this and they were working on colors a lot with their child, which I thought was super cute. They would like label things. We've had kiddos make things like this at ASSERT so they can play with them. Having some things that may usually like kids are attracted to, but they can't really play with because they're often fragile. Finding things like that that they can play with is really cool too. A lot of families, there's a lot of shopping happening around the holidays for food, for gifts, all that kind of stuff. And we might want to make maybe we'll make some like little visual schedules to help them know what our plan is. Like, okay, we're going to go in the car first and we're going to go shopping, and then we're going to go to the jump zone or whatever playground park thing we can go to in the winter. And then we're going to get back in the car and then we're going to go home. So they have an idea of like, what is our plan for today? The cool thing is there's quite a few apps now that you can do this kind of stuff on. So you don't have to like have a printer and a laminator. You can just show them on your phone. This is a really low tech, easy way to like add reinforcement through those shopping trips is just grabbing a bag of candy and putting it on a little loop, and then just being able to have it on your belt loop or just put it in your pocket. Purchasing presents is also another really exciting thing, and we can think about it in a couple different ways. So one of the families that we worked with probably almost 10 years ago, their advice was probably one of my like most favorite pieces of advice that I've ever been able to share continuously about presents for the holidays. So they had two sons on the spectrum, and they had experienced a lot of frustration with Christmas and a lot of like they had expectations and were really frustrated that like their sons weren't enjoying the things that they were getting them and that kind of stuff. And so one year they just decided to stop making Christmas about themselves, and they made it more about their child. One of them was obsessed with goldfish at the time, and that was their favorite thing. And so mom found all different shapes and sizes of goldfish. And she's like, it was the best Christmas. She's like, I cried happy tears. It was so fun because every time he unwrapped something, he just would stand up and flap and get so excited. And she's like, it was magical. It was the best Christmas we've ever had. And she's like, and I've tried to do that ever since, is whatever the thing is that they're interested in, do that and find those things. And she's like, and sometimes I'll add in like something I want them to wear or something I want them to learn to play with or learn to enjoy. She's like, but I started focusing on making it more fun for them, and it was really magical. And I thought that was a really great way to think about it. When a lot of times we'll see things on the internet about like, oh, here's like a structure of what to buy for your kids. I really like these kind of things that it's like buy something they need, buy something they want, buy something that they can wear and something that they can read. And so like that's a kind of a cool little structure that I like to look at, but I think it's a really fun way to think about, all right, I'm going to build a structure that works for me and my kid. I'm going to maybe buy something that I want them to learn to play with. I'm going to buy something that they enjoy. I'm going to buy some like their favorite treat or whatever and make it less complicated, make it really easy to like, hey, here are these 5 things that every year this is the routine that we're going to buy, and make it easier on ourselves because sometimes we get so wrapped up in all of it that it's so tricky and it's a lot of effort to go and find them. Last year, me and my husband made the decision that we like the week before Christmas was our cut off for shopping. We were not going to keep shopping up until Christmas because a lot of times we're like, oh, we need to go out and get this one other thing. We didn't need to ever go out and get that one other thing. It was fine. Like no one was going to care if it was there or not. And trying to give ourselves that grace and say, no, for us, this is going to be more fun if we get to just enjoy being home and enjoy being with our family. So setting those kind of adjusted expectations for ourselves as parents can be really helpful too. Some other things that are going to make those couple weeks, because most of the time it's about 2 weeks that we have off from our typical routines. So looking at sticking to regular timing as much as possible. So like wake up time, bedtime, meals. Stick to those regular routines as much as possible. Like, oh, we're traveling, we're going to grandparents' house for the holidays, but we're going to keep those same things. We're going to read a book right before bed every night. We're going to keep our routine similar as possible. And then we're going to watch cartoons after naps, whatever, trying to keep some of those structures in place that make it easier for that routine and getting back into the regular routine when we get back to those end of the holidays. It's also fine to throw things out the window and be like, do you know what? We're not going to have our perfect routine, and that's okay too. Deciding what works best for your family is great, and sometimes giving ourselves the understanding that like, no, we're not going to be to bed at the same time every night, but we're going to keep the same routine that we have every night. We're going to read, we're going to have a bath, whatever their routine is. Maybe that will be enough structure to make it a little bit easier on everybody. Trying to figure out like a loose daily schedule with some major activities like, oh, do you know what? Today we're going to go out and play in the snow, and tomorrow we're going to do whatever. Like having some ideas of what we're going to do on the next few days. Having that available. Some children really thrive having that routine and schedule so that they have things to predict that are coming up next. Adding in small little activities throughout the day. Maybe it's going for a walk, getting outside. Sometimes in the winter is hard, but getting that sunshine and getting that fresh air. If you're in Cache Valley, it's rarely fresh air in the winter. But looking at some of those things, like what are things that we can do to make our day more fun, make it relaxing and enjoyable. Another thing that we can do is setting up independent activity schedules, and if anybody's interested in those, they can reach out to ASSERT@usu.edu. We've done lots of research studies on activity schedules, and we've used digital activity schedules the last few years, and they've been really helpful. It's a great way to kind of get those like clear expectations of like, here's our things that we're going to do. You can set these up with really simple toys. Maybe we're at the stage of playing where it's really close-ended activities like shape sorters and ring stackers and that kind of stuff. That's where we start out with activity schedules. Some of the only prerequisite skills is really being able to match and being able to complete some of those little activities. So if you guys are interested in that, we have a YouTube video about how to create them and all that kind of stuff. Another thing to look out for is there's lots of free activities around the holidays. There's like things at nature centers and libraries and zoos. There's like usually like some zoo lights or things like that. And a lot of times there's a lot of free things, which is really cool. During the holidays, I know like Home Depot and Lowe's have like craft days that you can go. And if you don't want to do them there, you can take them with you. And then looking for times that you might need some extra help and This next part is more focused on just parents and what they can do for themselves, but definitely finding those times that like, do you know what? I'm going to need a break every once in a while. And that's okay to say, I need some time like this other child, or I need time to take care of this thing or take care of myself. Definitely finding time to take care of ourselves is important. And sometimes it's not just about filling the hours. Just do what you and your child enjoy. Do you know what? Like there's only so many days a year that we don't have filled with lots of other things. And this can be a great time that we get to sit down and watch Toy Story for the 500th time and get to enjoy that fun thing. And maybe it's we're doing puzzles and all the things that are really interesting to them, because sometimes that we don't get a ton of that time. So like I said, this part is more for parents, but it definitely applies to clinicians as well. But definitely thinking about self-care during the holidays is important. And I think a lot of times there's this misconception of like, well, I don't have time for a spa day and that kind of stuff. And I think really trying to change that narrative around self-care is something expensive or something that's not attainable can be really helpful for any caretaker, any clinician, any parent. Basically thinking about like simple things like stepping outside and taking a deep breath, eating something that sounds good, listening to your favorite music or podcast, setting boundaries and expectations. Like I said, last year we had that expectation that like, nope, we're not going to shop every day and we're not going to shop as it gets closer to the holidays. Maybe like there's always the expectation at grandma's house, like we're still going to have that same expectation with bedtime routine, that this is how it goes, even if we're at grandma's house. It's also okay to say no, and that's also a form of self-care, is maybe we're not going to attend every event, and that's okay. That can be a really, really great way to take care of ourselves. Definitely recognizing when we're feeling burnt out and exhausted. And I think sometimes that's what a lot of families feel around the holidays is burnout and exhaustion. And it should be a time that we're like replenishing and enjoying and prepping for a wonderful new year. It goes back to that kind of visual or that example of when you're on an airplane, like you're supposed to put your oxygen mask on first so you can take care of the other people in your group that can't put their oxygen mask on. And thinking about that, like if I'm burnt out and I'm not taking care of myself, my family isn't going to have the best of me and they're not going to have the best time either. I thought this was just a really cute little simple way to look at self-care. Simple things like taking a nap. My mother-in-law has the best saying, it's naps make nicer people. And I fully believe that. Eat something. Oftentimes we're not taking care of ourselves and drinking enough water, eating good food for our bodies, all those kind of things. Unplugging, stepping away from social media, which I know right now can be especially powerful to move away from and take a deep breath and realize what's in front of us and who's around us. Journaling, all those kind of things. So that's my little plug for self-care, even though I'm not a mental health therapist. It's an important thing for us to all be taking care of ourselves. So if you guys have any questions or concerns or ideas, please feel free to share them with me. This is my email address. I'll leave it up for a second. Were there any questions?
Cassidy, was so great to do that. And I love that idea of having heard that a few times now of having whoever is not the parent of that family not be the main caregiver or whatever. So I think that just reduces some of that stress for sure with it. And then I also come and knock on your door so that I can have the treat too, because they have good treats. My office is right by hers.
Oh, you can't see my Laffy
Laffy Taffy, yes.
I was like, it blurted.
Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or comments for Cassidy? Okay.
Cool.
Cool. Well,
Thanks for
thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you so much. Hey, so we are moving on to our case discussion point. And like I mentioned, this is not my case. This is somebody has asked me if I would share this in our echo session to get all of your guys' amazing ideas. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So this little girl And the gal that is having me present it really wanted to emphasize that this is a CAPTA referral. So she is right now currently living, she just moved back to her bio family's home. And she's 24 months old. She is a female. The biggest concerns are just developmental delays across multiple domains. And the parents are really focused or concerned on sleep and speech delay. Both her ASQ and her BDI-3 show significant delays in communication, and her expressive vocabulary is estimated about 20 words. She hasn't been working with this family for very long. They barely came in on the underneath eligibility for the IFSP process. Some information that was gathered is that they have been having this little girl has had swollen tonsils until March of 2025, had a tonsillectomy. I can't say that. Removed her tonsils, completed in 2025, and they really think the parents suspect that the tonsil issue is what contributed to her speech delay. She has frequent nighttime awakenings with loud, sudden crying. She has a difficulty going back to sleep. She does start in her own bed, but ends up in the parents' bed, and parents suspect it's night terrors or nightmares due to being outside of their home and now coming back. And so sleep is really their concern for the family. So our questions that we're going to discuss in the breakout group is, so I think that Colin is taking, no, am I right, Tori? Collins and Laurie are taking how might sleep disturbances?
Yes.
Okay, so how might sleep disturbances be affecting her daytime behavior and development? And then Stacy and Colleen, you're taking what approaches could help the family manage her sleep challenges more effectively. And then Leo and I are going to take what might the history of her swollen tonsils have influenced her communication and overall development, and some strategies that could support her speech development at this stage. So when we go into breakout groups, if you'll just take a minute and introduce yourselves, and then we will come back. So Tori, if you back. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was saying this to Leo as we got called broken off of our group. So Leo, I'm going to let you give an idea from our group, your biggest takeaway.
I think one of the biggest takeaways is probably just to give this child some time. I really liked when Martha said to first like discover that there's actually no pain, and then you can go ahead and maybe start trying to imitate sounds. But you've got to like observe, wait, listen, like all those good things.
Good. Great. Thank you. Colin, how about your group? I don't know who took notes or.
Yeah, I did. We got one that kind of came in that I wanted to be sure to mention, and it was from Crystal Kennedy, who said that they might want to see an ENT because of the tonsils. They might need their tubes checked out, their ear tubes. So,
That's a
so
good suggestion. Yeah. Great. And then is it Stacy? Who else was
Yeah, Stacy had to take off, so I'll take
okay?
over. But the funny thing is one of my favorite things that was said was Gretchen said it right as we were leaving. And so we talked about sleep, and most of our themes were on routine and sensory issues. But she mentioned something that I have never done, and I'm going to try it. What about laying in their bed? What kind of shadows are they seeing? What lumps might be in their bed? Like, what things aren't you noticing that they're experiencing? because again, we can create all these routines. We can have all these, special time was another one that was mentioned. Starting, talking about it during your special time, talking about the real physiological needs of sleep and stuff. But I never thought about that one. Like just take a second and lay in their bed. What could be things we're not seeing from their perspective or feeling from their perspective. Um,
That's a great
just a
idea,
silly little thing I'd never thought of before. So,
right?
yeah.
This is why I love the breakout groups because new ideas come in all the time that you're like, ooh, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we've all tried routines. We've all tried meds.
I,
We've all tried sensory things, which all came up. We all, expanded on those with really great notes. I have great notes. But yeah, that was one I'd never thought of. What a crazy idea. So kind of
that's
fun.
awesome. Okay, and so again, we will compile all of those. So the note takers, if you will send notes to the Autism Echo at usu.edu, Leo will drop that into chat for me really quick. We compile those and they are stored on our Canvas page. If you do a case, you get the list of recommendations on your own, but if for everybody else, they are all on there. And then our next session will be October 22nd, and we are going to have a fabulous presentation about the ADAM and URAD. So the ADAM is the Autism and Developmental Delay Monitoring System, and the Utah is the Utah Registry Autism Developmental Delays. Right, Colin? Did I say their acronym right?
Yeah, close enough.
Hey, so we'll get some great information on that. Thank you all. And if you'll remember to complete the survey, we would really appreciate that. Have a great rest of your day.